You say your business is ethical, inclusive, dynamic, and innovative. But how is that showing up in your actions? Do people know it? I'm not so sure. That's why we have Thomas here today, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself, why this topic matters to him, and why it should matter to you. Thomas, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me on. So, a little bit about me. I am a writer, an advocate, a storyteller, a game master. At this point, we don't have enough time for me to mention everything that I do in my daily life, especially just with my work. But my work is cemented in the idea that all people deserve sensory friendly events. You don't have to have a diagnosis to be able to appreciate them. You don't have to have, you don't have to have this idea that this is just for people with a diagnosis. Sensory friendly work, be it public speaking, Dungeons and Dragons, whatever, is something that should and ultimately must be designed for all people, as especially in today's day and age, post COVID era. So many things going on. People need a safe space. In my work, what I also like to focus on is the idea that accessibility matches people in everything that they are. A lot of people have the belief that accessibility is a wheelchair ramp or making sure someone has noise levels. I'm actually a big advocate that accessibility is honoring all of who a person is. I'm a big part of a movement trying to make that more of a reality, honoring the mental, the spiritual, the physical, all of who a person is. And going off of why I believe my business is ethical, one of the core things in my work is really this idea, and I know it's hard for a for-profit business to do this, but I believe in putting people first. I know that that's something a lot of businesses do, but especially within the neurodiverse and underserved communities, a big part of my work is charging as little as I possibly can. So my D&D games, I make sure that everything honors my players. I don't trigger, and a lot of people in the community I work with charge like 17, $20 per person. I work very hard to keep that like $5. I've even done sponsorships for people because what a lot of people don't realize is, if you haven't experienced this, is $5 can be the driving line between getting a meal and having a safe appointment with a doctor. The other thing that I work to do is I'll counsel my people who show up. I will work with them to make sure that I'm actually matching what they want. And even outside of just fiscally, a lot of what I do for a profit business is actually serving the community for free. And outside of money in general, what I do is to make sure that I am advocating by communicating with the community, honoring what people say they need, what they want, working with them to acknowledge the fact that, if someone's an adult, a teenager, youth, they have a lot better aspect of what they want and what they need than a lot of people believe. A big part of my work in that is actually advocating for the mindset that teenagers and youth have the ability, if they're given the opportunity, to be respected, to be treated as individuals more than their diagnosis, in the very much in the person first mindset, that they have the ability to thrive. I also work diligently with organizations like Colorado APSI, which is an organization that believes that all people deserve work. I have recently partnered with the Colorado state to become a part of a initiative to help with accessibility. But all of this is very flowery. It's very simple to say, oh, the person is doing good work. But at the end of the day, the main thing that I really work to do is to make sure that the people who show up to my events, the people who listen to me talk, they know that they're valued. One of the simplest ways to make people feel special is to value them, look at them as whole people, and really make sure that they are appreciated fully. A lot of businesses don't do that as much as they should, in my opinion. A lot do. That's kind of the core of my focus.
I think this is really interesting. There are a lot of themes that pop up, even when you're just, I mean, you've listed out so many different angles and opportunities for many businesses. And it's funny because even though I know a lot of businesses who will say that they run an ethical business, that they're an inclusive business, that they are people first. This is a huge buzzword across the entrepreneurial space and the small business space. We're people first, people centered. And yet we find some disconnect in our actions or excuses for why there may be disconnect. And now I don't want to, rub any salt in wounds or call people out for, oh, you're horrible. It's nothing like that, but it's more along the lines of let's approach this from a growth mindset and understand that you can be profitable while also being ethical and inclusive. You talk about charging lower prices, and there are going to be many people, including myself, who will say, charge what you're worth. Right? And that's true. But the fact of the matter is, if you have a business model, and this can be done quite easily if you just sit down and do it. If you have a business model that's structured in such a way that provides people who can afford certain fees to pay the certain fees, but then maybe you have a scholarship or a scholar or just a subsect where you can charge a lower fee for very similar offerings and still be a lucrative business. You just need to think in a way that's more open-minded and that actually actions your inclusive mentality. Does that feel in alignment, or am I way off base?
I think that's very true. I think for a lot of people, I have a very long experience in this field. I've gained a lot of knowledge. I would say for a lot of people, there is that mentality, charge what you're worth. And I think for a lot of people, when they jump to that, they're like, "Oh, I'll charge $200-300 for a project because I put a lot of work in." But one thing that I would challenge to that mindset is if you're working with underserved communities or you want to be a for-profit business for those who don't have a lot of money, charging what you're worth can mean very different things. You can have a fiscal aspect to it, but you also can have so a lot of my work has grown because part of me charging what I'm worth is I've compounded that for multiple people towards an event, but it's also me establishing myself with organizations, with my people, by providing high quality work at a price that's actually lower than what I would say is always reasonable. But I'm building trust, I'm building communities, and my belief is I would always rather charge less than what some people would say I'm worth for the sake of building my reputation, for the sake of connecting with the community, and then potentially landing clients that are larger while
Mhm.
still doing my work and making that some of that money back. There's also a lot of really creative ways that you can build a reputation, build what you're worth. Because I would always say when you're working with these communities, what you're worth and what you're doing may not always line up. And there's a lot of people would see it as a disconnect. A lot of people would see it as um, a limitation. But I
Mm.
would actually say what you're worth in those moments may be what they're receiving, what they're getting, what you're getting is that actual human connection, that power. And I will say, as someone who started off with one group charging $5, I was actually able to pivot that to like 8, 10 groups right now that I run on a regular basis. And because I was willing to sacrifice, because I was willing to keep my mindset towards the end goal, my first year, I had a very significant loss. My second year, I was able to make that up. This year, I'm because of my reputation, because of my value for what I offer for a very low price. That is ultimately a lot for a very underserved community. I'm already on track a few months into this year to break what I made last year. That all sounds great, but what the best part of it is I've made connections, I've made friends, I've connected with community organizations, and my reputation has gone somewhat global at this point. I've appeared on podcasts, I've appeared in other talks. I have some schools interested in Africa talking to me, and it's because I was willing to sacrifice for the sake of the people I work with, and it's growing rapidly. I should state I opened my business in 2021, like December 21, 2024. It's growing faster than I can almost handle from time to time. So,
That's nice. And also, I actually just recently wrote an article about this idea of like shifting your mindset a little bit around your success, because a lot of people tie then their success to their finances, and then both of those things to their worth.
Mm-hmm.
And this is obviously problematic for anybody who's in the mindset space or who's in the wellness and humanities space, because to tie your personal worth to something as arbitrary as your finances, what you're making, can be very counterintuitive. And in fact, if you can then shift your worth, your intrinsic worth, to something a little bit more profound, like the impact you're having on the people around you, what happens is, and you're a great example, the finances follow.
Mm-hmm.
People will want to pay for that. They'll want to get to know you, want to be in your world. And then the right people will pay you the top dollar, while you can continue to serve the people who can't necessarily pay him that much. It's amazing, an amazing case study, honestly, of the approach that feels backwards, but has such an amazing impact. Now, another part of this, though, is we're talking about ethics, right? We're talking about being ethical in business, and sometimes people can bristle at that because they go, oh, well, I thought I was ethical, and if you call me unethical, now I'm a monster. Well, no, that's not necessarily what we're thinking. So let's start that part of the conversation by saying, like, what is ethical? What does that mean? What does, like, I mean, at its roots, what would you say, in your opinion, is to be ethical?
So I think that's a great question. I think this is one of those things that for me, it's a very particular thing, and it could mean many different things for many communities. But I would say, like, the simple answer is me getting done with my work and knowing that I've made an impact. I've listened to people, I've understood them, I've put them before what people expect them to be. Um, Another way of saying it is, one of the resounding ways that I know I run an ethical business. One of the work I do, I work with youth. I work with a lot of people many would call problematic or difficult. I really don't like a lot of the words people use to describe youth, and I actually use the word youth to describe a wide range because I've become a very strong advocate against the idea of child and childish being used as a derogatory term. I really don't like that. But I would say for me, other than that internal gratitude, is when I get out in the community, the results of being. One of the best stories I ever got was I got a letter from a parent recommending me, and she said essentially Thomas is the best. He runs this group. My youth is excelling. He's always mindful. Another one was just this last Christmas. One of my players in a D&D group, Dungeons and Dragons, surprised me with a Christmas gift. He had been playing for a few months. They went to the Harry Potter theme park and brought me back a chocolate
That's exciting
wand.
for me.
He brought me back a chocolate wand and some of those jelly bean things and a
Birdie bots.
$50 gift card, and
Oh,
I was
that's so
just
special.
stunned. And the mom was looking at me with like this look of like, you're amazing. And he asked to hug me and said, you're the best game master ever because you pay
Oh,
attention to people, you help them through, and you still make the game work. And in less vague terms, I make people feel special. I listen to their needs. I honor who they are. I mean, at this point, I don't have employees, and there are very particular reasons because the work I do is very hard. But I also want to make sure that I'm honoring who a person is. I'm listening to businesses and being flexible. I'm appreciating their needs and understanding. And I think a lot of ethics in business people lose track of is just the human connection side of things. You can have an absolutely amazing product, but if you don't follow that up with being a good person by being like listening, appreciative, understanding, helping when things go bad, being flexible, like people will walk away. I know, for
something
example,
I'm hearing. I just this is there's I'm all tongue tied now because there's so much and it's so beautiful. But I'm hearing, just to condense it, it's that respect for humanity, plus, and this is the most important part, action.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's what I'm hearing in every layer of what you're doing. You're just respecting a person as a person, and you're taking action on that respect. It's just like you can sit there, you think of these love stories, and somebody loves and is swooning over someone, but they never get together because they never actually profess their love. You can sit there and say, yes, I'm ethical. Yes, I respect people. But if you don't actually act on it, nothing will come of it. Nobody actually knows it. And this is where we get back to values. If you're not going to act on your values are a moot point. So that action piece for respect, I think that's just so profound. And to get into some details into some of those action pieces, and one thing that you mentioned was sensory friendly events for a wide spectrum of humanity, whether you are differently abled, if you're neurodiverse, or if you're neurotypical and you're just, having a great day and you just kind of want it to be quiet. I know plenty of mom friends who are in that boat. They're just like, listen, I want to go. I want to have the party. I just want to hear the things. So, or have strobe lights. There are so many different effects of this. So I just want to, let's broadly speaking, let's dive into that idea of creating a space that is actually inclusive, sensory friendly, and respectful of all of the differently abled people in our world. What does that look like?
So for me, there's several things that I try to focus on. And I'll try to break this down quickly, but I would say one of the biggest aspects is how you greet people when they walk into your space.
Ooh.
I always highlight that, like, the main thing I highlight is like concerts. Concerts are great. They're a great community experience. But for a lot of people, even if you're neurotypical, when you walk in, there's thousands of stimuli. And then the actual event
Mhm.
happens. And I love concerts. I'm not trying to be mean to them in any way. But
Mhm.
when the actual event, that stimuli, that like disconnection from the people around you, that music, it's good for like a solid 20 minutes, unless you're a diehard concert fan. And then you're like, I got to get up and move. I've got to do things. The cost is out of the moon for things. Um, I think I just accidentally made up that term, but I actually really love
I
it. Out
like
of
it.
the moon.
We're doing this. The cost is out of the moon. Okay.
Yeah.
This is a thing now. Everybody, it's kind of like fetch. It's totally going to catch.
And then on top of that, like when you go places, there's not a solid space without leaving the venue to calm down.
Mhm.
So where
Mhm.
I greet people. I try to make eye contact and make people feel special. I work very hard to so especially when I'm working with youth, if they're nervous to play a game or something, I'll ask them what their favorite activity is, or if it's Dungeon Dragons, I try to connect by asking, what's your favorite video game? And then I'll greet them and say,
Yeah.
hello, I'm Thomas, with a big smile. I found a lot of people, when they get into a space, they're anonymous. They don't feel safe. So making sure that they're calm, and they're listened to, they know they're in a good space. And argue there's nothing like a good, comfortable smile to do that.
I
Then
love that. Actually, I before you move on, because I know there's so many different ways. This right here, just I need everyone to know that this is so important in so many aspects of what you're doing. I recently did the same thing. I'm actually hosting a volunteer thing where we're trying to make my hometown magical. So we're creating little fairy houses and stuff. That's besides the point. The point is I had to do a workshop with youth. They're leadership youth, so they were already kind of committed to being leaders in the community, but they were very, very different personalities within this group. Like massively different. And I thought, I walked in there, I set up, and as I'm setting up, I'm watching them. Like, how am I going to get them all on the same page? How am I going to get them to open up to me? Because I'm some woman who comes in here with a bunch of fairy houses. Like, who the heck am I? Um, and I thought, oh, you know what? We're magicking up our hometown. So I asked them, who likes reading? A few people. Oh, excellent, cool. Who likes video games? Bunch more people. Okay, cool. Excellent. Who likes, oh, I don't remember all the things. I think I may have asked, who likes D&D? Anybody like cosplay? Who likes this? Who likes reading comic books? And like, I just touched on all of the different things that could possibly elicit imagination. And then I said, that's what we're doing. And we're all on the same page. Look at us. We are all living it. There was not a single person who was in attendance who couldn't say, yeah, you know what? I do use my imagination. I am actually quite creative in my own regard. And then we were able to execute the plan. And so just projecting that over into the marketing space, you're looking to market your business. You're creating your website. You're creating a social media presence, even just optimizing your profile. Somebody clicks on it. How are they being greeted? This is a big question. Ask yourself that. Do they feel welcome, like they want to share with you? Because part of the sales process, for anybody who's in business for any length of time, knows that it's, hey, what are you working on right now? What are some of your successes? What are some of your challenges? Ooh, I don't think I want to share that with you. But if you create the right space where people feel safe to be vulnerable, you open the door to more conversations, more opportunities to serve. This is huge. And that's just in one little tiny category that we discussed. So I just feel like this could be a whole series, Thomas. My point being, you covered one aspect of creating a sensory-friendly space, creating a space that is ethical, inclusive, shows respect for humanity in an action-oriented methodology. Let's have another conversation where we outline these different things and how they represent themselves as business owners, as people who can take action and create these spaces for the benefit of our audience, but also for our own mutual benefit, because you've already created that clear example. It leads to success, both fiscal success and mental and emotional success, that feeling of I'm doing something that matters. Let's plan another chat. Just for everybody to know, this is going to be a conversation. Keep your eyes open. Thomas and I need to have another conversation. But for the time being, take that one chunk of greeting with warmth to your heart and implement that in your marketing. Thomas, putting aside the entire conversation that we are going to be having, what is something that you want to leave people with today that you think will make a huge impact on how they approach creating a for-profit, ethical business? The floor is yours, my friend.
So one quote that I've lived my life by since I think I was in, it might have been elementary school or middle school, was the great quote of "Be the change you want to see in the world."
Beautiful.
I love that. I found that is a core aspect of just so many different ethics, so many different things. The only thing that I would add to that is after you say that, after you start implementing that, listen to your community, listen to the people around you, and if you need to make changes, make changes.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that. If you need to make changes, make the changes, because you've got it in you. Now, how can people get to know you, Thomas? How can people reach out?
So you can definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn. I know that there's that banner popping up there. I also have my link tree. If you want, you're more comfortable on LinkedIn, feel free to reach out. I'm always a believer that questions are the pathway to power as well. So if you have questions for me, please let me know.
Stay
And
curious. That's right. No, I love that. That's so beautiful. Now, it was funny that you said the be the change, and I was trying to there we go. Because I remembered I have a notebook with that exact quote on it, and it was the same idea. It was just that I looked at it and I said yes, and I bought it. Now this is a sketchbook that I haven't broken. It's a virgin sketchbook, and it's beautiful. But that quote, I think, impacts so many people, and I want everyone to understand that you can do it. You have that power. And if you recognize it, once you become aware of it, you need to scratch that itch. Like, you have a responsibility and And don't give away your power. I'm always telling you, don't give away your power. Take that power, hold it tight, and make it happen. And you can do that by contacting Thomas. This is the one tiny, simple step you can take. If you're like, okay, I recognize what, I don't know what to do. Contact Thomas. Simple, easy. LinkedIn, Thomas, done. And you're already 10 steps ahead of the rest. So with that, I invite you all to make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, share with your friends, and please comment. This is a conversation starter, and you're a part of it. So let's chat soon. See you later.